You know, some stories feel like they're ripped straight from a horror movie script, but what we're talking about today is a devastating and very real tragedy. We're going to dive into the case of the acclaimed director Rob Reiner and unpack the dark, disturbing events that unfolded inside his own family.
So let's talk about who we lost. The victims were Rob Reiner, the genius behind classics like When Harry Met Sally and The Princess Bride, and his wife of over 30 years, Michele Reiner. I mean, these two were beloved figures, true Hollywood royalty, deeply respected by everyone. And then, just like that, their lives came to this brutal, shocking end. The news sent absolute shockwaves through the entire community.
And here's the part that's just so hard to wrap your head around. The prime suspect in their murders is their very own son, 32-year-old Nick Reiner. The police believe he cornered them, armed with a knife, and stabbed them to death. This accusation, it just hangs over everything, creating this central, horrifying question. How could something like this possibly happen inside one of Hollywood's most famous families?
To really understand what went down, we have to start with how this whole nightmare was discovered. It wasn't some dramatic confession or an anonymous tip. No, it all unraveled because of a simple missed appointment.
Okay, so here's how it happened. The family's massage therapist shows up for a scheduled session, but can't get inside. So she calls Nick's sister, Rami, for help. Rami goes over to the house to check on them, and she walks into an absolutely unimaginable scene. She sees her father's body. She immediately runs out of the house and calls the police. I mean, can you even imagine? It is literally a daughter's worst nightmare.
So while this horrifying discovery is being made and a search is kicking off, where's Nick? Well, this security footage shows him at a local gas station, just casually buying a drink. This was just moments before the police swarmed him and made the arrest. The contrast between the sheer brutality of the crime and this totally normal act, it's just chill.
An act this horrific, it doesn't just happen out of the blue, right? When you start to look back at Nick Reiner's life, a really troubling picture begins to form, one that's just filled with what so many people now see as giant, flashing red flags. You know, people say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and man, does that feel true here. If you look at family photos, even ones from years ago, Nick just stands out. The rest of the family is smiling, having a good time, but he often has what people have described as this blank, creepy stare. He looks like a total outsider in his own home.
And this wasn't just a vibe he gave off. The facts back it up, and they are grim. His struggles started young, with drug abuse kicking in when he was only 15. That led to a revolving door of treatment programs, 18 of them. Think about that, 18 different programs. He was homeless multiple times. He even had a heart attack on an airplane from cocaine, and his behavior, it could get violent and destructive. He vandalized his parents' guest house in a fit of rage and even threw a rock through a window at one of those treatment centers.
And if you want to know what his parents were going through, this one quote from a close family friend talking about what Michele Reiner said, it just captures the absolute desperation. They were parents at their wits' end who felt like they had tried everything, literally every single option to help their son.
Now this is where things get even more complicated. The relationship between Nick and his dad, the famous Rob Reiner, it was complex, to say the least. And nothing highlights that more than a film they actually made together. It was supposed to be this blend of art and therapy, but instead it just exposed the deep cracks in their relationship.
So the movie was called Being Charlie. Nick actually co-wrote the script, and it was loosely based on his own life, his struggles with addiction, his time in rehab, and his father, Rob, directed it. On the surface, you'd think, wow, what a powerful way for them to connect and maybe even heal. But the reality on set was anything but therapeutic. While Rob was publicly saying things like the film helped him become a better father, the people who were actually there, they tell a completely different story. They describe these massive, unprofessional screaming matches right in front of the whole crew. One stuntman said, flat out, that Nick treated his father like dirt. And maybe the most bone-chilling clue of all came from Nick himself, during an interview to promote that very film. The interviewer casually mentioned that he didn't seem very fiery. Nick's response, looking back now, it's just horrifying. He said, "I get crazy. You don't want to set me off." It was a direct warning, a glimpse of the rage that was boiling right under the surface. Okay, so that brings us to today. Nick's under arrest, and the gears of the legal system are slowly starting to turn. Let's look at what he's facing right now.
The charges are as serious as they come. 2 counts of first-degree murder. And there are special circumstances added because a knife was used. What this all means is that Nick could be facing either the death penalty or life in prison with absolutely no chance of parole. But here's an interesting twist. The district attorney has said the family's wishes are actually going to be a factor in that huge decision.
And just to give you a sense of how seriously the court is taking this, get a load of his bond. $4 million. It's a staggering amount, and it just reflects the brutal nature of the crime and the danger they believe he represents.
Of course, there's also the question of the inheritance. His parents were wealthy. Well, California has a law for this exact horrifying situation. It's called the Slayer Statute, and it's brutally simple. It basically says you cannot profit from your crime. So if Nick is convicted of intentionally killing his parents, he is legally blocked from inheriting a single penny of their money or property.
So, after all of this, we're left with this one final haunting question. When you look back at everything, the decades of drug abuse, the violent outbursts, the clear cries for help, the strained relationships, all of these warning signs were there. Was this tragedy just always going to happen, or could it have been prevented?